So this week, what do we got?
Remo, Armed and Dangerous. This is a little-known film, this one.
I hadn't heard of it before.
This was supposed to be the launch of a whole big franchise. In America, it's known as Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. But unfortunately, no one went to see it. So it began, and then it ended.
Because it's supposed to be a kind of a American version of Bond, right?
Yeah, it was conceived as a blue-collar Bond. They even hired a James Bond director to make it.
Guy Hamilton, wasn't it? He directed a few Bond films.
Yeah.
And I think one of the writers was he'd written a couple of Bond films.
And it had a bit of Bond to it. And then it stars Fred Ward, Wilford Brimley.
And his mustache.
And Kate Mulgrew, Captain Janeway herself.
Who always gets hit on and a bit of sexual harassment going on. We'll get into that.
But we'll get to that one in a minute.
There's a very small part where Reginald VelJohnson shows up as an ambulance driver.
Yeah, he showed up right at the beginning for one shot. Hey, don't steal my ambulance. Hey, where the hell you going with my ambulance?
It's a 1985 film.
He's a New York cop who, well, it says on the box here, pronounced dead after a gangland ambush. Because there's some really shonky shit going on at the beginning of this with his gangland ambush, because it doesn't make any sense why these two guys are beating up another guy and then the guy they're beating up turns on him. And then McCleary shows up and drives his car into the river and kills him.
He's kind of killed in an accident.
And then he wakes up in hospital and they go, we changed your face.
You were ugly.
Which they didn't. He looked exactly the same. They just took his mustache off. Because he looks in the mirror and he says, that's not me. I'm thinking, what did they change? He looks exactly the same.
They shaved his mustache off, because this is Mustache, the movie, and gave him a name off a bedpan.
Williams. Remo Williams.
He's effectively dead and goes and gets retrained. It's essentially RoboCop, but it's definitely not RoboCop.
No, this ain't RoboCop.
He's been recruited into a clandestine government agency operating outside the government to enforce the Constitution.
Which is just the three of them.
And he's got to be trained in this ancient martial art from Korea. Called, was it, what's it called? Hang on,
Well, that's the thing. They send him off to Chun to train him up so he can dodge bullets.
Hang on, I've got it written down somewhere. Chun, blah, 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 blah.
Sangria?
No, that's a drink.
Yeah.
Shinanju, or Sinanju.
Shinanju.
Is this ancient Korean martial art.
Which will teach you how to dodge bullets and jump into sand piles and pop out the top, head first. Well, the thing is, I quite enjoyed Remo, going back. I hadn't seen it in a very long time. It has its issues, mainly Joel Grey playing a Korean kung fu master.
Shinanju.
Now, Joel Grey's not Asian, is he?
No.
If you do not breathe correctly, you do not move correctly.
Not only did they yellow face it, they got an Academy Award nomination for Best Makeup.
He got a Golden Globe nomination, I think, for his performance.
Yep. So you get scenes of Joel Grey in yellow face makeup being incredibly sexist.
Women should stay home and make babies.
Excruciatingly bad accent as well. It's like...
That I would do reluctantly because you have been a good pupil.
Apparently there was a TV show they were doing and they also cast another white actor in that same Chun role.
Well, that's the thing. They kept trying. I know there was a TV movie made a few years later and it just didn't take off. The concept didn't hit. It was based on a series of books, The Destroyer.
Yeah, like pulp novels, weren't they?
Pulp novels. And it does have a little bit, like it doesn't know if it's meant to be jokey or if it was too serious, because some bits come across really serious.
A soldier's been killed by your new AR-60.
That's what they get paid for.
And other bits of it are really quite funny.
Just remember, I won him. He's mine.
It was supposed to be more lighthearted. That was the problem. It didn't really know what it wanted to be, or...
Apart from too long.
It is quite long, yeah.
Yeah, it's nearly 2 hours. Well, Chun takes him in and says, well, I'm going to train him up.
He moves like a baboon with 2 club feet. However, I think I can do something with him.
Good.
And all the while being addicted to soap opera.
I was going to be an All-American.
Well, now you can be All-American for courage.
What are you watching?
your country's one and only contribution to the art.
It has all the hallmarks of a Bond film. You've got the shadowy government agency. You've got henchmen with discernible features, this one being a guy with a diamond in his tooth. I kept trying to picture where I'd seen that guy before.
Patrick Kilpatrick.
He was in Under Siege 2.
Wilford Brimley basically does a Steven Seagal in this. Like, every time you see him, he's sitting down. He's at his computer, which for a 1985 computer is all multimedia. It's a pretty advanced computer.
Oh, it's an amazing computer.
It can find out any bit of information.
It's just Wilford behind a desk. That's this entire clandestine thing. And McCleary, who runs around with his really articulated fake arm.
Anti-personnel mine.
And then they go and they bring in Remo.
It's like it's trying to be Inspector Gadget or something. This was obviously the setup, because ultimately not a great deal happens in the film because it's all this setup. It would have been all these adventures afterwards.
The main thread is this investigation into a defence contract.
Yeah, with these sort of shonky guns that keep on blowing up.
These guys are basically ripping the government off.
About this new weapon, sir! I want to tell you something! It's useless, sir!
Kate Mulgrew's character is inside the military investigating it, with everybody going, she's a woman.
Every scene, basically, she's harassed.
Or it's the whole thing, like, oh, she's a woman, but she's okay.
See?
Do I sense frustration?
I'll bet you've had a lot of experience at that.
If I continue to stroke these little keys here...
You might stunt your growth.
But Rainer, let me give you a word of advice. Never feel you have to overdo it. Do you know what I mean? It makes no difference to me that you're a woman.
Be careful, they may be armed, and for crying out loud, watch the Major, she's a woman and she's on our side.
And Chun's the one out of all of it that says the most full-on stuff to her.
You are very skinny.
But some of the things they say to Chun.
Speak English.
Well, where does that leave me? Leaves you with your slant-eyed little buddy.
There's no political correctness going on in this thing at all.
Offensiveness all round.
You move like a pregnant yak.
Later on, when Fred's dodging a few bullets, this ain't the Matrix.
Well, the whole thing just really reminded me of a kind of just an 80s TV show. It doesn't help that it was VHS 4:3, and I can't picture it as a cinema release. It just, to me, comes across as a TV show.
Except for, I think, the sequence, there's an action beat at the Statue of Liberty. And that's quite actually well done. They actually created a mock-up Statue of Liberty, but they went on location. It was under renovations at the time. And they got right up there, and they've got these shots with, that's New York in the background.
It did amaze me how easily the construction workers on this construction of, cleaning up, maintenance, just were so willing, for seemingly not that much money, to kill someone.
28, 29... Gordon.
I don't think they knew the bad guys. It was just like, oh, we're giving you some money to go and get that guy, and they're happy to do it.
You got it, mister, yeah, no problem.
Oh, they're New Yorkers.
Yeah.
My favourite bad guy in the whole thing was a pack of well-trained security Doberman. Raising ladders. And walking on tight ropes.
The music seems to be wanting to be the A-Team.
Dun 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 dun.
It sounded like you enjoyed it a bit more than me.
I did enjoy it for what it was. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't see it as the 80s TV show. I saw it as a failed franchise launch. But I do remember years ago watching it and not liking it. Watching it yesterday, I could see it as the 80s failure that it is.
Definitely VHS gold worthy.
Oh, absolutely. It is very much VHS gold. And Remo walks away from an explosion before it was cool. I would want to see it any other way. So thanks for watching this episode of VHS Gold. If you like what you saw and want to see some more of it, don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on those notifications so you'll see the next one when it pops up.